What's the hardest game you've ever played? Not too long ago, I probably would have said Celeste or Super Meat Boy since I play a lot of platformers, but now? Nah, it's Psilosybil. In case you couldn't tell from the footage, this game was heavily inspired by the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, but more specifically the first game where your only moves were jumping and attacking, that's it. There's no double jump or slide here, so having confidence in your jumps is really the only way you're gonna get through these levels. There's also no power-ups or assist features. In Crash Bandicoot, you could at least rely on Aku Aku to take a hit, but here you'll always die in one hit no matter what, so damage boosting past obstacles isn't gonna work here. Here's the thing, I knew this game would be hard, and I like hard games, but nothing could have prepared me for the pain and suffering I experienced on my first playthrough. This game is deceptively difficult. Watching footage of this game makes it look kinda easy, but once you actually play it, you realize the inhuman level of precision and muscle memory required just to get past a single obstacle is absolutely insane. And I kinda love that. Once you pinpoint the exact inputs you need to get through a tough section, you enter a sort of flow state where you know exactly where everything is going to be. Getting to that point of mastery takes a lot of practice though, but that's what I love about Psilosybil. Most games wouldn't expect you to master them just to make progress, but Psilosybil makes that its whole identity, constantly encouraging the player to reach for harder and harder goals by overcoming failure. All the death and frustration is just to build resilience for when you eventually attempt to go for 100%. Psilosybil contains 25 stages including 4 boss fights. The first level introduces you to your basic moves as well as some of the enemies and obstacles you'll encounter on your journey. Now this is the only level in the entire game that I would consider easy. Everything after that ranges from hard to straight up Kaizo level difficulty. In fact, I would consider level 5 to be one of the hardest in the game because it has some super precise jumps that are bound to trip up new players and an auto runner section at the end that you basically need to memorize. The bosses are also, of course, very hard. I think bosses can be pretty hit or miss in platformer games, but thankfully Psilosybil's bosses are engaging enough to hold my interest. Unlike certain games. Well, all the bosses except one. The first boss, Chef Porcini, isn't that fun in my opinion. It's definitely the weakest of the bunch. You have to basically memorize where he's gonna jump since you have so little room to work with, and once you know what you're doing, the fight is over within 10 seconds, so yeah, it's really not too interesting. But the other 3 bosses are great, each one offering a unique challenge that feels like a natural extension of the platforming you do in the regular stages. The biggest issue I have with bosses in platformer games is that they often don't have enough platforming, which is the whole reason I'm playing the game in the first place, so to see Psilosybil get this right was a pleasant surprise. At the time I'm making this video, I've been playing the game for a few weeks now, so I've had plenty of time to get good at the game and form my thoughts. But to be completely honest, my first playthrough of the game was completely miserable. This is not the kind of platformer you can just blaze through playing level after level. Nah, I would usually end up spending more than an hour on these levels even though they're only a couple minutes long. And there were a ton of times where I would get past an obstacle that was giving me a ton of trouble only to die to an even harder obstacle right after that one, get sent back to my checkpoint, and then struggle through the first part again. So yeah, this game is unapologetically brutal, but I still kept playing no matter how hard it beat me down. The immense satisfaction I got when I finally conquered a stage made it all worth it. And I mean, that's the thing that can make or break a brutal game, right? You know, how satisfying is it to win? Well, thankfully, Psilosybil nails this. However, most people won't finish this game. At the time I'm writing this, only 6.9% of people have. Most people are just going to be turned off by the game's unforgiving design, which is a real shame because I think Psilosybil's postgame is even better than the initial playthrough. Upon beating the final boss, I witnessed what might just be the most disappointing, unsatisfying ending to a game I've ever seen. And you're looking at it right now. It's a scrolling wall of text that basically tells you you're not good enough because you didn't get 100%. This is where the game shows its true colors, because it's one thing to get to the end of a level, but what about all those side paths and transparent platforms you saw on your journey? And what are the gold skulls listed on the completion progress screen? 100% takes the game from brutal to the most masochistic collectathon I've ever played. You'll need to free every mushroom by collecting every token in each level, and you'll have to get all the gold skulls by completing the game's time trials. The mushrooms are like the gems from Crash. Collect all the tokens in a level to free the mushroom for that level. You can't just save them in any order though. Similar to Crash Bandicoot, there are platforms throughout the game that only become solid once you've saved the right mushroom, so some stages will be impossible to complete until you've completed another level first. Then there's the time trials, one of my greatest fears in any video game, and Psilosybil easily has some of the hardest I've ever done. Take these levels that are already incredibly hard and now do them without checkpoints and as fast as possible? Sounds fun, right? Some of the time trials aren't that bad, but many others will force you to approach the level in a completely different way than you're used to. So to give you an idea of what I mean, here's my top 5 hardest time trials in Psilosybil.
Number 5.
Cliffhanger. This level has a lot of really tight jumps where you need to bounce off these bugs that come out of the walls, which is pretty tough, but it really ramps up about 30 seconds in because instead of taking the normal path through the level, this is the only time trial where it's actually faster to take the harder optional path. Here, you'll encounter these vampire enemies that switch between a bat and a human form. You can jump on them when they're humans, but not when they're bats, so you need to be extra careful or else you end up jumping on a bat and dying. Yeah, there's a reason this level has its own Steam achievement.
Number 4.
Ground meat. I already mentioned level 5 is one of the hardest levels in the game, and I'll stand by that, but doing the time trial makes it even worse because now you can't break your flow despite how many moving bugs you have to jump on. The auto runner part is also made harder because if you want to make the gold time, you have to do speed boost throughout this section, which I didn't even know was a feature at first. Speeding up means the obstacles in front of you won't be in sync though, so you have to be very careful about where you use it. But if you just do it a few times and you had a perfect run up until then, you should be good.
Number 3.
Lord Nutmeg. This is the final boss of the game, and he's also got the longest time trial. The fight is split into 3 phases. In phase 1, you need to dodge Nutmeg's magic balls and crosses while his minions periodically come out from the stands. The second phase is a chase sequence, and once I got this part down, I found it to be the easiest out of all the phases. And the final phase has you jumping across some falling platforms while Nutmeg's hat attacks you. This boss fight is already a monumental challenge, and trying to do it in one go took me at least a few hours. There's not really anything special about the time trial in terms of strategy, but it gets the number 3 spot just because of how long and brutal the fight is.
Number 2.
Pearl. Believe it or not, there's a boss with an even worse time trial than the final boss. In this fight, you have to jump across a moving set of platforms while hitting all the cores along the way, then hit the power button at the end. During the regular fight, you get checkpoints after each hit, and you'll always respawn at the start of the green platforms, so you're never forced to do it backwards. But in the time trial, learning the second phase backwards is a necessity. The problem with this is that there's no way to easily practice the second phase backwards, because if you die during a normal run, the platforms will be moving forward again. So basically, I had to learn to do the second phase of the boss backwards, and each time I failed, I had to do the whole first phase again. And do I need to explain why going backwards is hard? I mean, look at this. Number 1. Truffle Traffic. Yeah, I'm surprised too. This level really isn't that hard, so I thought the time trial couldn't be that bad. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. If you try to play this level normally like I did during my first attempts, you'll barely be able to make the bronze time, but the gold skull is 5 seconds faster, so how do you shave off that time? Well, like this. Now, learning this technique took me an amount of time that I don't want to specify. Figuring out exactly when to jump and how long to hold jump was an excruciating process of trial and error I never want to go through again. And one wrong jump will have you face planted in the road as you get run over by the traffic. I found the last part to be really finicky too, which felt really discouraging because most times I would die during the first section, so I barely had any chances to practice that last part. So yeah, the time trials were a huge struggle, but once I attained 100%, I finally got to see the true ending. Oh, no, this is the same ending. Her mushroom friends remain captive? No, they don't, bro. I saved them. What are you talking about?
Huh? Eh? What?
Well, your actual reward for 100% is the beach outfit. And if you wear it on the final level, you can access a new area that was blocked off before. It's a vacation spot, which was alluded to in the intro cutscene. But there's nothing to do here, and I still felt like there was more to do. I mean, I thought surely if I unlocked all the costumes and achievements, maybe then I would finally get some kind of decent ending. Well, spoiler, there is no true ending. That scrolling wall of text and some NPC dialogue from some of the mushrooms are really the only closure you get. I wondered why the game was like this. Why didn't I get some new cutscene like the intro, or at least a different wall of scrolling text to acknowledge that I got 100%? But then I wondered if I would have gone as far as I did in Psilosybil if I did get a satisfying ending. Would I have just stopped playing if the game congratulated me for beating it instead of telling me all my shortcomings? In a way, I think Psilosybil does have a true ending, but that ending is just wherever you decide to stop. Maybe for some, beating the final boss will be enough, but others might end their game far earlier out of frustration. Either way, Psilosybil invites the player to go as far as they want by not having a definitive ending. Since there's no end goal, your only reward is the satisfaction of overcoming the stages, so if you like that, then great, but if not, then the game isn't really forcing you to play it, you know? And yet, that scrolling wall of text made me think there would be another ending. With the promise of more, I did everything there was to do, but I'm not disappointed anymore. I finally feel at peace. I feel like I've done all I could in Psilosybil, and I think that's the true ending. It's the point when you're satisfied with the work you've done. For me, that meant getting all the Steam achievements, since I like to complete games. And yet I still find myself coming back to Psilosybil every now and then to see if I can conquer one more challenge, or maybe get a new PB on my speedrun. And in that sense, I'm not sure Psilosybil will ever end for me. Hey there, if you're still watching this, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. This is pretty different from the usual type of content I make, so if you liked it, just let me know. I would love to do more stuff like this in the future, like video essays, or just talking about topics in gaming, anything like that. So yeah, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, or subscribe to my channel for more stuff like this. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.